Hey guys, Final Death Star here, and today we're talking the state of the Star Wars fandom in 2018. And there is an article that came out today, and it really kind of irked me the way that the author describes the disgruntled fans. I mean, again, it's kind of like the sexism, racism, misogynistic, the same old thing. But, you know, the worry is that while there probably are, I mean, I'm sure there are fans that do go to those extremes. I think they're really in the minority. The other YouTubers that I watch, the articles I read, the Twitter posts that I follow, they never talk about this kind of thing. It's always from a constructive point of view. It's always pointing out like character flaws, something in the writing. It's never saying that like, oh, I don't like Rose because she's a woman, or that she's Asian, or that Kathleen Kennedy's a woman and not qualified to run Lucasfilm. I mean, that has nothing to do with it. At least from the people, the majority, I feel that don't like The Last Jedi and the way that the Star Wars franchise is being run right now. But the fear is that anyone that talks out against this is just kind of automatically lumped in and thrown into this, or labeled sexist or misogynistic. And that's just, it's crazy, and it's creating this kind of community of fear where, you know, if there is this little minority, that's all the media runs with. You know, it doesn't take the time to really try to understand, okay, look at all of the, I mean, the 46% I think is still the Rotten Tomatoes score. So there's clearly enough people that are upset with this movie, and they're not all racist and sexist. I mean, it's, you know, that's insane. So why doesn't the media take a little more time to try to understand, hey, these parts of the fandom that haven't liked these movies, why aren't they connecting to these characters? And it's not just Rey and Rose and, you know, the female characters. I mean, I've been more outspoken against the character of Luke Skywalker, who, you know, isn't really Luke Skywalker. It's Jake Skywalker, as Mark Hamill has said himself, dealing with the character in Last Jedi. I've been more outspoken against him than anyone else because that's not the character of Luke, and it was just so poorly managed. Rian Johnson, again, I've been, you know, voiced my opinion of his mishandling with The Last Jedi. You know, he tried to take risks and they didn't work out. And then he's, you know, kind of went on a rampage against fans that have been voicing their opinions. And it's not all sexism and racism. I mean, that's, you know, if that exists, which it probably does, I don't really see it on any of the people that I follow. But if it does, it's in the minority. So this article is called The State of Star Wars Fandom in 2018. So I'm going to kind of just breeze through this or skim through it. I'm not going to read the entire article. I will link it down below if you guys want to check it out. About Star Wars is no stranger to detractors and defenders. Ever since Empire Strikes Back came out, there have been divisions between fans. Nothing like this, though. I mean, this is unprecedented. It says, and you remember the prequels, right? Not everyone loved those movies. Phantom Menace didn't have as much backlash as The Last Jedi. It didn't divide the fandom like The Last Jedi did. So this is something that's, yeah, sure, there's been people who haven't liked it before, but nothing like this. Two factors contribute to the current perception of Star Wars, that Star Wars is being torn apart more effectively than the soul of Anakin Skywalker. First, there's so much content coming out. Second, the internet. New stories leave different tastes in people's mouths, and the internet gives them the ability to complain about it ad nauseum, which I guess is what I'm doing, but it's also what he's doing, because this is an online article complaining about fans who are complaining about The Last Jedi. By way of a recent history lesson, though, the largest overarching factions of fandom in the new era arrived in 2014, when Lucasfilm announced that the Expanded Universe, or EU, would be made Legends, and no more news stories would be made in that timeline. Before then, everyone had pretty much adopted a wait-and-see attitude towards the company, with Kathleen Kennedy at the helm and Disney as the owner. This erupted into a war against fandom, which more militant fans of the EU creating petitions, harassing creatives, hiring out billboards, which I have not seen any of those. That would be, I'd like to see the billboards that people hired out. If that's I guess that's true. I don't know. I'm assuming he's right. But if you guys have seen any billboards, link the pictures down below, because I'd love to take a look at those. And doing anything they could to plead their case. Some resorted to terror tactics. learning spoilers in advance of Force Awakens and spreading them online to unsuspecting fans in a bid to ruin their experience. So he's saying that people were resorting to terror tactics. People were already upset, so upset before Force Awakens even came out, that they were trying to spoil things for fans before they'd even seen one movie from Disney's new reign. Again, if that happens, it's a small minority, because I never saw any of that, any terror tactics of spoilers online before Force Awakens came out. Afterwards, sure, if people weren't happy about the movie, but Force Awakens was pretty fun. I mean, the majority of fans, I think, enjoyed it to a good degree. I'm sure that it had its issues, but, to see Harrison Ford back as Han, I mean, that was great. I don't really like the deadbeat space bum that they turned Han into, but it was still great to see. He was still Han Solo. Even if he wasn't the Han that we totally remember, he was still Han. That was the problem with Luke in Last Jedi. It wasn't even Luke, not only was it not the Luke we remember, it just wasn't even the character of Luke Skywalker. So, The Force Awakens was met with nearly universal fanfare. It was fun. Yeah, it was. People overwhelmingly liked it, and it became the highest grossing film of all time. Sure, some argued that it was a rehash of A New Hope, which, there were definitely elements it kind of was, but, that's okay. So he says that is just the way opening chapters of Star Wars trilogies are in the Skywalker saga. There were a few, though, that didn't like a film by a woman, led by a woman, and you get situations like this. And then if you go to the article, there's like a video of some guy on his Twitter tearing apart an action, or I don't know, it looks like it's blurry, but it looks like an action figure or a TIE fighter or something that he's ripping apart. It's like, you're going to take the most extreme example and use that for your, this is how it is, this is how all the crazy fans are. Okay, it says here, though Daisy Ridley left social media, things seemed to get better for a while. Anxiety hit with news of reshoots and troubled productions for Rogue One. But the movie came out and went, and fans were pretty pleased with the final product. I was pretty pleased with the final 5 minutes or so. But the whole movie was, it was fun. I enjoyed Rogue One. The final fireworks in fandom that would bring out the worst people wouldn't come until the release of Rian Johnson's masterpiece, The Last Jedi. So here, this is obviously a biased article. It's biased anyway, but this is obviously a masterpiece. You kind of know what you're getting. Hey, look, people are allowed to like Last Jedi, of course. I mean, everyone has their own opinion. If you love it, you love it. It's great. It's fine. I have one of my best friends loves The Last Jedi, and although we, very vocal about our opinions back and forth, and I'm right, he's wrong. Just kidding. But yeah, we are able to have discourse over it and be very civil in our conversations, and I make the same points I make in these videos to him. But that being said, so we already know the tone of the article, that he's calling it a masterpiece, which is fine. It's his opinion, and that is quite all right. The Last Jedi split off a piece of the fandom that might have been the most toxic. Okay, I think it split off more than just the most toxic fans. Again, you look at all the user reviews, or not critic reviews, the audience scores and things. It's not just toxic fans that don't like this movie, okay? You got to get over this, media people. I'd like to preface this by saying some fans have had issues with the film and have been respectful in their critiques and are not racist and misogynistic. Well, it's okay. There we go. Thank you for that little bit of one line of respect to those who are not that way. But that's the problem, is that where does the line get drawn? Because it seems like even though you say these things, anyone who criticizes it just kind of automatically gets lumped into one of those or both of those categories. And that's the fear that I was talking about before, that you're kind of timid to even voice your opinion on this because you're going to just get labeled, even if you're trying to make what does he say here, respectful critiques, you're still going to kind of get lumped in that racist, misogynistic category. So, but okay, it goes on. Unfortunately for these more respectful Star Wars fans, a small but even louder group of racist and misogynist Star Wars fans have made life a living nightmare for fans who enjoy The Last Jedi, as well as the cast and crew. In fact, despite my impressive block and mute list these days, I can, maybe I'm going to be on that. I can tweet the words The Last Jedi without getting, I can't tweet the words The Last Jedi without getting one of these fans frothing at the mouth about how Rian Johnson somehow ruined Star Wars forever in my mentions. The film was lambasted for being against men because Admiral Holdo was right and Poe Dameron was wrong. And the mental gymnastics were done to try to say up was down and Poe was right and Holdo was wrong. But that's not the way it works, especially in a set command structure. They didn't like seeing the male hero emasculated by a purple-haired commanding officer who happened to be female. That statement is ridiculous. The whole thing about Holdo and Poe had nothing to do with her being a woman. It was bad writing. The fact that they had this argument that she wouldn't tell Poe her plan, I mean, that was all dumb. I read an article today on Twitter, and I'll post that down below as well. And it was saying, it was like the 10 things I'd fix about Last Jedi. And one of them dealt with this very issue. And it was saying that her not telling him the plan was like equivalent to holding a gun at someone's head with the finger on the trigger and it's, half pressed, and then Poe saying no, 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 and stopping her, and then her yelling at Poe because he didn't realize that this person had, some rare medical condition, and by shooting him was the only way to save his life. But, because Poe stopped him, or stopped her from doing it, now he's going to die and it's all Poe's fault, and that's a lesson to be learned. It's like, from the outside, it just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, something like that, putting them in like a life or death suicide situation and not giving Poe any information, and then this whole mutiny that happened, it was all just dumb. It had nothing to do with her being a woman or, having purple hair. It's stupid. It was the writing that was the issue. But, again, this is just the kind of stuff we get. Then the attack against Kelly Marie Tran started as a new player in Star Wars and the first female Asian lead. This particular subset of fans didn't take kindly to her presence, let their racism and misogyny affect their view of the film, and somehow interpret a great performance in a way that made them hate the film. As they set out to attack her almost immediately, and was talking about her having to leave, and all the stuff that's been going on with, unfortunately with Kelly Marie Tran, which is too bad because, I do agree, she was just doing her job. It has nothing to do with her. Again, I've made videos on this, the character of Rose, it was the writing, just like the character of Luke. It has nothing to do with her being a female or being Asian. It's just the writing of the character. And Star Wars author Chuck Wendig dared to speak out against the abuse of Tran, as well as the abuse he suffered over his novels, and referred to the fans perpetrating this toxic behavior as shitty, quote, shitty. And that didn't sit well with pockets of fans, well, I can't imagine why, who felt called out. They didn't want to cop their toxic behavior and instead attacked Wendig. Requests to Lucasfilm were made to somehow put the cast and crew and authors and anyone tangentially related to Star Wars in check because, after all, they were paying customers, and in their minds, the customer is always right. Well, that should be the mind of any business, whether the customer is right or wrong. That's just the mindset of a business that deals with the public. The customer is always right, even when they're wrong. And then he goes on to blame Comic Artist Pro Secrets and Jeremy at Geeks and Gamers for starting this SJW propaganda and calling for the boycott of Solo and naming it Soilo. And I watch both of these guys, and while they are very vocal on their opinions, and as they have every right to be, they didn't call for the boycott of Solo. I know Jeremy specifically, I've watched his videos where he said many times that he was not going to see it, but everyone else is free to do whatever they want. With his money, he wasn't going to spend it. If other people wanted to, that was fine, and he had nothing against those people. So, this is kind of a hit piece now on these two guys too, because I think they were kind of the face of this. I would say of the boycott, what became the boycott. But they weren't the ones who started it, and they weren't the ones calling for other fans to boycott it either. So, it's unfortunate they're getting thrown in on this, but, I guess that's the risk you take when you make these kind of videos. So, he concludes the article with saying, with so much Star Wars to look forward to, people who actually enjoy the franchise have a lot to look forward to. I still look forward to what's going on with this franchise. I am still a huge Star Wars fan. I'm still doing videos on what's coming up. I'm just also voicing my opinion on how I feel the franchise is going, where it's headed, and my feelings towards it. That's all I'm doing. I'm still excited, but it's getting harder. I'm skeptical. But unfortunately, I don't see the man babies and shitty Star Wars fans going away soon, as he says here. The best we can do is hope they watch the Star Wars films again and understand that they would be aligned with the Empire in that universe and that they've missed every lesson, personal, political, and spiritual, the films have tried to teach since 1977. We can hope one day it sinks in. In the meantime, we can mute and block the toxic fans, correct and educate the ones that can learn, and spend our time focusing on the positive. So, see, he's saying your opinion's wrong. If you don't like these movies, your opinion's wrong. If you don't like the way the characters have been written and dealt with, you're wrong. And he's here to either correct you or block you. So, there's no wanting to have a discussion and understand our point of view. Even if we're trying to make logical points, they don't want to hear it. It's just, we're going to block you and we're going to educate you because you're wrong. Obi-Wan warned Anakin in Attack of the Clones about focusing on the negative, and we saw how well that worked out for Anakin. Let's instead focus on the positive. We've had our failures, but like Master Yoda, the greatest teacher failure is. Fandom can be fun again. We'll get there. Okay, so his little ending here, it's trying to end on this positive note. We can spend our time focusing on the positive, and let's focus on the positive. Don't focus on the negative. But your whole article is focusing on the negative. You're attacking these toxic fans, and you're attacking these toxic fans, and it's all negative. This whole article was negative. So if you want to focus on the positive, why don't you try to, instead of educating and blocking and muting, the fans, you call them toxic fans, but just any fan who disagrees with it, why don't we see the articles from the media coming out saying, hey, these guys aren't relating to these characters, and a lot of them have good reasons not to, and they've made these reasons clear. Why don't we try to understand why they're not getting it? Why don't we understand why there's only 46% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, instead of just having these kind of angry hit pieces that focus on the negative? So this is just another article coming out that's kind of attacking fans. What it does is it creates an atmosphere where it prevents people from being able to express their feelings towards these movies, towards these characters. If you disagree with kind of the media mainstream point of view, you're labeled. You have a label put on you. And it's not fair for those of us who don't like some elements of these movies, or don't like the movie altogether, or don't like certain characters, whether they're male or female. But you're getting blamed for just the female characters that you have problems with, not the male. I don't see anyone attacking anyone for not liking Luke Skywalker because he's a male. But the minute you say something about Rey, it's like, oh, it's because you don't like female leads. No, what? It has nothing to do with that. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below about this article, about just the state of the fandom in 2018, as the article is titled. And if you liked the video, give it the old thumbs up and subscribe to see more. And until next time, lock the doors and hope they don't have blasters.